It gives me great pleasure to introduce our next honored guest, a 1965 graduate of West Point. Secretary Shinseki completed 38 years of uniformed service in the United States Army, including 2 combat tours in the Republic of Vietnam and service as the Army's Chief of Staff from 1999 to 2003. Secretary Shinseki became the 7th Secretary of Veterans Affairs on January the 21st, 2009. As Secretary, he has promised to end homelessness among veterans, a daunting but an important goal. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to the Honorable Eric Shinseki.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Legionnaires. Great, generous welcome from you, Jimmy. Thank you for that kind introduction, for your own service to the nation, and for your leadership of American Legion. Let me acknowledge 2 members of Congress with whom I work very closely and who have been most supportive of veterans, of VA, and of this Secretary. They both serve on the House Veterans Affairs Committee, and first is Representative Tim Walz of Minnesota, a Guardsman, and the second is Committee Chairman Jeff Miller of Florida, whose leadership has been crucial and will continue to be crucial to VA and its mission of serving veterans. So to Mr. Chairman, Congressman Walz, good to see both of you again. Thanks for your leadership and support. My greetings also to former Chairman Chet Edwards for well-deserved recognition by all of you for his many years of service to veterans. Let me also acknowledge members of the Legion's leadership, Dan Wheeler, Peter Gaeton, with whom I work most frequently in Washington, Carlene Ashworth, National President of your auxiliary, 2 members from State Directors Conference, Pete Wheeler of Georgia and Terry Scow of Utah, with whom I work very closely. They're my counterparts at the state level. And if there are other state directors here, I acknowledge you as well. Members of the Legion family, fellow veterans, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to be here in Minneapolis for the Legion's 93rd Annual National Convention. Last week at nearby Fort Snelling, I think some of you know this, we have a cemetery there. 2 American warriors were laid to rest. 31-year-old Chief Special Warfare Operator John Foss and 24-year-old Special Warfare Operator Second Class Nick Spihar, both of them Navy SEALs. John and Nick both perished when their helicopter went down in Afghanistan earlier this month. 28 fellow operators, special operators, also perished with them. This is a particularly difficult time, as all of you know, for their families. And we pray for John and Nick and their 28 mates and are reaching out to all of their loved ones at this time. The sacrifices of our young and their families continue unabated, and the risks they face daily are undiminished. When incidents of tragic proportion strike, we're snapped back to their realities, the realities they live with every day. They fight for us, and they are making a difference. And risk and sacrifice should not be theirs alone. We owe them the best this country can offer while they're fighting, and we owe them the best this country can offer when they come home to join the ranks of our veterans. That is our moral obligation. And that's why I'm thankful to the President Obama, for giving me this opportunity to serve veterans. Now, I know he spoke here yesterday, and he's a tough act to follow. This is like the warm-up act coming after the main event. But thank you for the warm reception you provided him. It is sometimes said that we honor the fallen by how we care for the living, the ones who made it home. Well, that's what President Obama and VA and frankly, members of Congress have been about for the last 2.5 years, and I can speak firsthand about the 2 members that I recognized, 3 members that I recognized. President Obama handed me 2 priorities when he offered me this appointment 2.5 years ago. Pretty strategic, pretty straightforward. First, make things better for veterans, and then transform this great department of yours, the Department of Veterans Affairs, so that it better serves veterans throughout the 21st century. He provided not just strategic guidance, he also provided his personal support time and again. If you know anything about the budget process, it's an iterative process. Time and again in the fork in the trail where we could have gone left or right, the President sided with VA and veterans and provided us resources. And so he has not just provided personal support, he's assured the availability of much-needed and scarce resources to address some long-standing issues. And then he allowed me as secretary the freedom to make decisions and to act on behalf of veterans. With congressional support, President Obama increased the VA's 2010 budget to $115 billion, a 16% increase over the congressionally enhanced budget that I inherited in 2009 when I arrived, the largest single-year increase in over 30 years. This year, the 2011 budget grew to $126.6 billion, and the President's 2012 budget request for next year, currently before the Congress, is for $132.2 billion. Very few organizations, public, private, profit, nonprofit, military, or civilian, have had this kind of resourcing support over the past 3 budget cycles, and every bit of it has been needed to fix some long-standing issues in this department. So thanks to the President, we have clear direction, we have predictability in resourcing, and we have unwavering leadership support. And now it's up to us to deliver. Veterans remain a very high priority with President Obama, and I know that personally, I know that firsthand, and I can tell you that it goes deep with him. That commitment will be reflected in the care and benefits VA continues to provide the men and women who safeguarded our nation in its darkest hours. These are tough economic times, and that's especially true for veterans. As of June this year, 1 million veterans remain unemployed. The jobless rate for post-9/11 veterans is 13.3%, an extremely hard-hit generation. And as troops return from Iraq and Afghanistan, an additional 1 million youngsters are expected to leave the uniform ranks over the next 5 years between 2011 and 2016. So 3 weeks ago, the President again demonstrated his unwavering support of veterans and of business by announcing new aggressive initiatives to get veterans back to work. First, tax credits for any firm hiring unemployed veterans, short-term hires, long-term hires, a max credit of $9,600 per veteran for firms that hire veterans with service-connected disabilities who have been long-term unemployed. And second, the Department of Defense and Department of Veterans Affairs will spearhead a government-wide effort to reform the way members transition out of the military services. Every member will receive the training, education, and credentials needed to successfully transition to the civilian workforce or to pursue higher education. If we can spend 9 weeks in boot camp getting youngsters ready to go operational, we can find the requisite time to fully and properly assure their successful transition back to their communities, either to go to work or to go to school. And finally, the President challenged the private sector to hire or train 100,000 unemployed veterans or their spouses by the end of 2013. In my personal opinion, that's a chip shot. VA already employs over 100,000 veterans in our workforce, and they make up about 30% of our workforce. We're going to increase that to 40%, and that's what we're working on. We're also working to expand opportunities for veteran-owned businesses. 2 weeks ago in New Orleans, we conducted our National Veteran-Owned Small Business Exposition. It was a training conference providing an unprecedented opportunity for veteran-owned small businesses to build capacity, to grow their businesses, and to have direct connection with VA's procurement decision makers. Over 4,100 people attended, 1,600 of whom represented either a veteran-owned or a service-disabled veteran-owned small business. Additionally, we recently awarded 7 of our 15 major contracts in VA. major T4 information technology contracts, specifically to veteran-owned and service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. And then we're requiring all 15 contract awardees to meet our subcontracting goals of having veteran-owned or service-disabled veteran-owned businesses on their teams. We know historically veterans hire veterans, and so increasing the number of successful small business owners who are veterans increases our opportunity to assure that veterans will have job opportunities. VA is also continuing its historic mission, thanks to the Congress, of preparing the next generation of leaders by administering the education of over 518,000 veterans and family members under the new 9/11 GI Bill. When you add VA's other educational assistance programs, that number of veterans and family members in school today is over 840,000 youngsters. This fall, thanks to the Congress, we're going to expand that GI Bill program to provide vocational training and other non-degree job skills for veterans who want to work, but who aren't necessarily interested in sitting in a college seat for 4 years. And so this will be another tremendous opportunity for veterans to add value to their communities. The President's budgets have enabled us to attack 3 key priorities that I set for us back 2.5 years ago. One is extending and increasing veterans' access. I was told it's hard to get into VA, and so we decided to do something about it. The second priority was to end veterans' homelessness, and the third was to eliminate this thing called the claims backlog. On access, through our re-energized outreach programs, we have increased the number of veterans enrolled in VA healthcare by 800,000 in the last 2.5 years, a 10% uptick. We have qualified 89,000 veterans for benefits under new rules for a presumption of service connection for conditions related to exposure to Agent Orange. We have made it easier for combat veterans to receive care for post-traumatic stress disorder and have hired an additional 3,500 mental health professionals since 2008. We have built more than 30 new community-based outpatient clinics, and we are building 5 new VA hospitals. We've also invested heavily in telehealth, connecting all of these access points so that we have a constellation of care out there for veterans. We've also improved our outreach to women veterans with women's program coordinators at each major medical center, and over 1,200 care providers have received advanced training in women's health care. Homelessness. Our progress in the fight against homelessness has been significant. Since 2008, VA has helped house over 29,000 homeless veterans and family members, and another 30,000 have been assisted through the Homeless Call Center. We intend to reduce the number of homeless veterans to below 60,000 by June 2012, less than a year away, with the goal of ending this national embarrassment in 2015. VA is in this fight with all of our capabilities. We don't talk about homelessness as though it's a one-vector discussion. We're in it across the board. Primary medical and dental care, mental health, substance abuse, education, case management, housing, as well as jobs counseling. We're also conducting justice outreach to support the creation of veterans courts, which would remand veterans, those that are facing minor charges, petty crimes, repeated substance abuse offenses, the kinds of things you end up in jail for if you do it often enough. Remand those veterans to us at VA for treatment in lieu of incarceration. And we're working with state and federal prisons to afford veterans being released from prison an opportunity to break that cycle of incarceration, homelessness, incarceration, which plagues many of them. There are 1,310 federal and state penitentiaries, and we are into 950 of them linking up with those veterans. We are committed to ending veterans' homelessness by 2015, and we are after it. And ending veterans' homelessness is not just rescuing the individual on the street. Our image usually is someone wrapped in blankets and clothes sleeping on a heating grate, and that is true. That is a very visible part of the homeless issue. But it's much broader than that. We're after it, and we're going to end it in 2015. Claims backlog. In 2009, you asked me to fix the backlog in disability claims, and I have committed to ending it in 2015 by putting in place a system that processes all claims within 125 days, not an average of 125 days, but within 125 days. And less would be better. And at a 98% accuracy level. That's the challenging part. You can go fast and do it ugly, or you can do it right, go slow. That's not good enough. We're going to go fast and get it at 98% accuracy. Of the things you asked me to take on, this one's the most challenging. It's taking us a little longer to get momentum. But we have a host of promising options being piloted today, and we expect them to begin paying off in 2012 as we begin fully automating the disability claims process. And the reason I'm fairly confident that we've got a good handle on this is our success in automating the new GI Bill program. As you know, we started that as a stubby pencil drill, and as we were getting the first 173,000 youngsters into college classrooms in the fall of 2009, we were doing a parallel effort to build the automation tools that we needed, didn't have, frankly. And so here today, we went from 173,000 fall of 2009, over 518,000 going to school, automated processing going to school today under that program. So that gives us a measure of confidence. Now, attitude. 2 years ago, many of you told me that some in VA had an attitude problem. And I agreed with you. Sometimes you guys are hard. Okay. And I agreed with you. So since last December, with input and recommendations from a variety of panels, work groups, and VA senior leaders and other stakeholders, we have settled on 5 core values that we believe underscore the moral obligations that are inherent in VA's mission. And these are integrity, commitment, advocacy, respect, and excellence. Those 5 words. Integrity, commitment, advocacy, respect, and excellence. And now if you take the first letter of each of those words, it spells the acronym I CARE. And I know there's at least one person in this audience wondering whether or not this is a cute marketing device where you start with one, I care, and you back your way into a set of values. Didn't happen that way. Maybe 10 iterations of differing members from all levels within VA, leaders, members of the workforce, VSOs, and they wrestled hard to settle on these 5 words. Start out maybe with 100 ideas. And 100 values don't make any sense. We thought it had to be less than 7 if it was going to be fruitful. And so how to get to the right 5, 6, or 7? We settled on 5. And that came out of that process. A lot of tough argument, a lot of debate, a lot of heated opinions. But we have agreed on this 5. And yes, once you get the 5, some bright person arranged this so that it spelled the acronym I CARE. It's helpful for us to remember those values. It's an aid for memory. But it also incurs a promise. I CARE incurs a promise. And this is the way it works. Integrity. Because I care, I will act with high moral principle, adhere to the highest professional standards, and maintain the trust and confidence of all with whom I engage. Commitment. Because I care, I will work diligently to serve veterans and other beneficiaries, be driven by an earnest belief in VA's mission, and fulfill my individual and organizational responsibilities. Advocacy. Because I care, I will be truly veteran-centric by identifying, fully considering, and appropriately advancing the interests of veterans and other beneficiaries. Respect. Because I care, I will treat all those I serve and with whom I work with dignity, showing respect to gain respect, to earn respect. Excellence. Because I care, I will strive for the highest quality and continuous improvement, be thoughtful and decisive in leadership, be accountable for my actions, willing to admit my mistakes, and then rigorous in correcting them. You'll begin to see these core values demonstrably at work in our daily business. It's an education process, and we are, leadership to workforce, having those education discussions now. It's not a one-day event. It's not a one-week initiative or a one-month priority or this year's good idea. This is a routine, continuous education process where members of the workforce and leadership will revisit why these values are the ones we settled on and what it means in serving veterans. Every new employee will go through the same training program. You do have my assurance that VA has embraced these promises, and that's what they are, promises, with serious dispatch. Now, with your help and support, we've had 2.5 good years for veterans. There's much more to be done, but we do have momentum in key areas and clear directions for the future. We will not fail to honor the dedication and selflessness of men and women, the men and women we serve. Warriors like Army Ranger Joe Kopaczewski, who was severely wounded when an Iraqi grenade shattered his right leg, extensively damaged the entire right side of his body, severing a nerve and an artery in his right arm. Now, doctors didn't expect him to walk without support ever again, let alone fulfill his wish of returning to the Ranger Regiment as a squad leader. Then again, most of us don't fully appreciate iron will. In Sergeant Kopaczewski's words, "I just don't like people telling me I can't do something." Kopaczewski had been serving with the Rangers since May 2002. When he was injured in 2005, 3 years later, he was on his 5th combat deployment. After multiple surgeries, slowly regaining the use of his right arm and enduring unimaginable pain in that right leg that was so severely damaged, he made the call, courageous call, to have his right leg amputated below the knee, opting for greater mobility and faster recovery with a prosthetic leg. In March 2007, the leg was removed. 5 months later, Kopaczewski was running. 6 months later, he rejoined the Ranger Operations Company at Fort Benning. That's that transition unit where you have to go in and show the right stuff before you get an assignment to the regiment, if that's what's going to happen. 10 months after surgery, Kopaczewski completed an Army PT test, a 5-mile run, and a 12-mile road march with a 40-pound ruck. In March 2008, 1 year after surgery, he became the only amputee ever to assume combat duties in the Ranger Regiment as a squad leader. He has since deployed. He'd be a great recruit for the Legion. He has since deployed 4 more times. He's been promoted to platoon sergeant. He's received the Bronze Star with V device for having saved a comrade who was severely wounded. Sergeant Kopaczewski is a member of the 9/11 generation that the President spoke to you about yesterday. More than 5 million Americans have served in the military during this past decade. 3 million of them joined after 9/11 knowing full well that they'd probably be going to combat. Their accomplishments are extraordinary. We all know that. Unseating the Taliban, pushing al-Qaeda from its sanctuaries, capturing Saddam Hussein, delivering justice to Osama bin Laden, and even today still training Iraqi and Afghan forces to defend their own countries so our kids can come home. The 9/11 generation includes more than 1 million spouses and 2 million children, many of whom have lived only in a country at war since their birth. More military women have served in combat than ever before. Hundreds of thousands of troops have deployed multiple times, and they've all borne a heavy burden on behalf of this nation. But despite the enormous strains of 10 years of continuous operations, our military remains as strong as it's ever been. And I reflect that as someone who used to sit in positions where I watched this quite closely. Sergeant Joe Kopaczewski's 9/11 generation is defined just as every generation before it. Every generation of America's veterans has been defined by the virtues of selfless service, sacrifice, and devotion to duty. These men and women who serve and have served are the flesh and blood of American exceptionalism. And that's a term you hear used a lot. My definition of it are those who have served and who serve today. the living, breathing embodiment of our national values and our special place in the world, resides with all of you. We are blessed to have them just as we were blessed to have you in your time. God bless our men and women in uniform. God bless all of our veterans, and may God continue to bless this wonderful country of ours. Thank you all very much.